Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse, only on Netflix.
Y'all, there was so much news this week that we could have made this episode 3 hours long. But instead, we've carefully selected the most essential stories for your Friday news roundup. So today in CityCast Las Vegas, I'm here with Jacob Solis, press secretary at Battleborn Progress, and my co-host, David Figler. And we're going to talk about the 34-acre fire in the Wetlands, the new/old statewide abortion law, and the 7 tigers seized in Pahrump. It's Friday, April 4th. I'm Sarah Lohman, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. David and Jacob, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm caffeinated, ready for a 3-hour episode. Let's go.
I said we should do it. I would
Yeah.
sit here and do it. We're going to be a totally different pod from now on. Just kidding, everyone. Just same old 30-minute Friday episode. But I know we've really been doing our hot ledge line recently, but like the ledge, as Jacob told us to, is a little quiet this week. Yeah, Jacob?
Unless you really love housing. I don't know. Today might pop off. Who knows? You never know with the legislature. I don't trust anything that happens in Carson City.
We do rant about housing a lot. It's true. And there is some news there, but we can't even get into it. We've got a limited amount of time. We're actually going to cover one of the hottest hot headline of this week, which is that Sigal Chattah, a prominent Republican attorney and former candidate for state attorney general, has been named the interim U.S. attorney for the District of Nevada. Now, this does have to go through a confirmation. Our 2 Democratic senators have objected to it based on the fact that I'm based on a couple facts, but one of them is that in 2022, Chattah was the Republican nominee for Attorney General. She drew national attention for comments about her Democratic opponent, Attorney General Aaron Ford, including saying that Ford, who is Black, should be hanging from an expletive crane. Not a good look. And Chattah ultimately lost that race. So no one is super happy about having her appointed when she ran for election in a similar role and didn't win. Thoughts, Figler?
I'm not going to say that no one's happy. I'm sure there's plenty of Republicans and very conservative MAGA people who are very happy that she's in there. Look, the U.S. attorney is always a political appointment. Sometimes they put someone milquetoast in there. Sometimes it's someone firebrand. The U.S. attorney is basically in charge of sort of the federal shop for the U.S. Department of Justice here, decides what prosecutions to do or, when to cut deals and whatnot. They're just basically the steward of the office. They tend not to be too high profile. So, she's been a practicing lawyer since 2002. She's probably come most to notoriety for being involved in a lot of litigation, most of which lost, involving challenge to Nevada's election laws and things of that nature.
Yeah. So if she's confirmed, she could only be in office for 120 days. So Jacob, how much can you actually get done in 120 days?
I think it's a good question, but I think honestly the way to view this is through this sort of Trump 2.0 national campaign of national retribution, right? Putting people like Kash Patel in charge of the FBI, trying to get Matt Gaetz as attorney general right before that blew up and he switched to Pam Bondi instead, right? These appointees are designed to punish the Trump administration's enemies. And I think if we look at the way that Sigal Chattah has sort of operated as a lawyer, as a freelancer in the last 5 years in particular, this is just totally in line with that, right? So why is Chattah there instead of in Trump 1.0? I genuinely can't remember the guy's name who is the U.S. attorney in Nevada, but I don't remember him doing anything really terribly controversial because it was just sort of prosecuting cases that the government had in the District of Nevada. With someone like Chattah, is she going to operate like that? I think you could make a credible case that the answer is no, right? For the reasons we've listed so far.
she's looking, I'm sure, to be the permanent U.S. attorney for the entirety of the Trump administration. But the governor isn't particularly fond of her, at least from the public-facing side. So really, who's the highest-ranking supporter of hers in our government who's a Republican? It's probably Stavros Anthony. I don't even know. One thing that the U.S. attorney does is go after political corruption. And that could be really interesting. Also, there's concurrent jurisdiction between the federal government and the state or county governments in a lot of ways. So like the Tesla vandalism case is both a state case and a federal case. And so she might have a say in whether or not there's going to be a plea bargain for that guy or if they're going to seek a higher penalty or, a lot of things like that. So it's not an unimportant role. But it is interesting always who gets selected.
All right, well, let's move on to some of the other stuff that's happened this week because, okay, Jacob, Monday morning, I sat down at my kitchen table, I looked out my back patio doors, and the skies here in Henderson were filled with smoke. So can you tell us more about the fires that happened at the wetlands this week?
Yeah, not great, if you ask me. So there was a 34-acre fire that was contained
She did
by...
just ask you.
Well, I wasn't like, Jacob, is this great or not?
Well, I'm just saying, generally
Jacob's like,
speaking,
no, it's not great.
It's not great.
Sorry.
Fires file under not
continue.
great. I'm just saying.
Please ignore my colleague.
So yeah, the 34-acre fire was under full containment, the county said, I think by Tuesday. But yeah, so the wetlands were, I think, 210 acres.
Yeah.
It's a fairly sizable fire, and they confirmed that it was human-caused. Now, they didn't say much more than that, but I think we can infer, how do human-caused fires happen either by accident or by arson. In this case, I think the assumption is accident, but obviously we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it raises a lot of questions about, okay, how do these fires happen and how do we make sure they don't happen, I guess.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to get into. I went last night to have a poke around it. It is open again. And actually, they've got some events coming up this weekend as well. So if you all want to go out and support the wetlands, that's great. I will say that, I wandered around for about an hour and actually did not encounter the burned area. So it just reminded me how vast the wetlands actually are. But yeah, okay, so let me know if I'm reading too much into this, but when we hear human caused, my mind goes two places. One, cigarette butt, or two, the unhoused. I know that the wetlands are known to be a place for homeless encampments, and I feel like people start blaming the unhoused for when things like this happen. So if that does end up being the cause of this fire, like homeless encampments, what does that say about the bigger picture of our homelessness problem here in Las Vegas?
Yeah, it's a challenging question because people need to live somewhere.
Yeah.
And the wetlands is like the tunnels underneath Las Vegas, an out-of-sight place.
And resources,
and
right?
there
And
are
bathrooms.
resources nearby. I mean, most people don't even know that the wetlands exist. It really is out of the public eye in a lot of ways. I mean, you and I and Jacob all know about it because we've all been there.
Yeah.
And
Saw
we
some
enjoy
quail last night. Totally adorable.
Right? It's great to walk around. It's great to see, what's basically an origin of our city still in its original form to the extent that it can be. But our policies are all over the place. And when we talk about what are essentially triage centers with beds, it doesn't get to the systemic issues of people just wanting to be out of sight and not having to deal with the pressures or the rules that society wants to place upon them to get the bare minimum things. And so, talking to those folks and finding out what it is that would take them out of there seems like a more equitable way to, treat these issues as opposed to vilifying everyone when we see a fire, et cetera. But I mean, we don't know, and we need to make that really clear, is that we're not sure exactly what the cause of this particular fire is.
Yeah, I have to say, we put in some calls last night. I think everything is just like a little TBD at the moment. Jacob, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, like David said, I think we really have to get at the sort of why are folks out there and what do they need, in order to answer that question, because clearly if they're out there right now with the services that already exist, then there's some disconnect between what's on offer and what they want and what would actually help. But it's also, like sometimes it's just a perfect storm of stuff because like it's been windy as hell. And like anytime
and
you
it
talk
was
about
that
as
day.
hell.
and
I
dry,
mean, we're basically no rainfall place.
We got a little last night, which I was happy to
A
see.
little.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Vegas standards
sprinkle.
1/10 of an inch. So
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel ready for like a brief into the weeds that will be a pun, nerdy Sarah Lohman research rabbit hole?
I'm always down.
Yeah,
I, love
I'm
when
fully
you do
ready.
this.
yeah.
In my last book, Endangered Eating, I did some research with a wetland in Cleveland that had a similar problem to what we see in the wetlands. Like, this isn't the first fire at the wetlands. This isn't the last fire at the wetlands. And there's the cause of the fire, there's the literal spark, and then there's why these fires spread and can be difficult to contain. And weirdly, a lot of that often has to do with the common reed or Phragmites, which is a plant that is dominant in the wetlands. If you're not familiar with this plant, Phragmites, you have seen it. You've seen it growing along highways, and it is the dominant plant in the ecosystem over at the wetlands. It's a big, tall
wetlands.
And our wetlands, yeah.
Oh, wow.
A big, tall, grassy reed that looks beautiful, but is actually really destructive because its roots tend to suffocate other plants, or basically doesn't let them see the sun.
It's a bully.
Yeah, it's really, you know what? It's really good at being a plant. I got to give it that credit. It crushes the other plants, and it leaves this sort of mess of dried materials that don't rot away and are highly flammable. So this wetland outside of Cleveland that I work with, they, after a 40-acre fire, just like this, that abutted a residential neighborhood, just like this, put into place this really intense plan of herbicides and crushing the plants and getting rid of it. It worked, and now over 200 species of native plants just grew out of the land. So that's where my curiosity lies, is like, okay, so maybe this can be used to do some remediation, some ecological remediation that will benefit the wetlands in all kinds of ways.
I, for one, welcome the war on the reeds. Look, because if you can get rid of what's going to make the fire worse, right? Then you can, minimize the impact of fires when they happen, because fire's fire. Look, the cavemen knew it. We knew it. It's going to happen. So, do what you can.
If you think you know everything there is to know about Las Vegas, well, think again. Duck Duck Shed is a 3-day festival where the city's true story comes to life. From April 24th through the 27th, the Neon Museum brings you exclusive tours, expert-led panels, and engaging conversations with the architects, designers, and storytellers who built and are still building Las Vegas into the entertainment capital of the world. Duck Duck Shed, it's a phrase from the seminal architecture book Learning from Las Vegas. I'm excited to have been invited to give a talk at the fest about how we do and don't continue to learn lessons about our city's unique design. So, whether you're an industry professional or just love the city, Duck Duck Shed offers a deeper look into our growth, culture, and history. Tickets are on sale now at duckduckshed.com. Register today and be part of this one-of-a-kind celebration of Las Vegas. Don't miss out.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Okay, so now we're going to move in a totally different direction. David, there is some wild stuff happening in the courts, in the ledge, in terms of a statewide abortion law. What's going on?
Sure. Having gone down this rabbit hole and read the 27-page decision from the federal judge.
We've done so much reading in the last 12 hours
we
for
do
this
it
episode.
for the people.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the TLDR for most people. Look, in 1985, the Nevada legislature passed a parental notification law. It has a lot of twists and turns, but it was also tied to a criminal provision that provided for a misdemeanor if somebody violated that law. Well, almost instantly after that law was passed by the Nevada legislature, a group of Planned Parenthood out of Reno sued in federal court for an injunction saying, look, this clearly is unconstitutional, primarily because of Roe v. Wade and the right to be able to have access to an abortion. And the district court judge agreed. It went up to the Ninth Circuit as an appeal. They also agreed. And so started a 40-year injunction that became permanent that prohibited that law from being applied. Well, after Roe was overturned by Dobbs almost 3 years ago, Sarah, can you imagine how fast time goes by?
Yes.
Yeah. A group of district attorneys, of all people, from the rurals, specifically out of Carson City and Story, and I believe someone from Douglas joined in as well, with a lawyer from Indiana, said, hey, everything changes now. This old 40-year law, we don't forget that it's there. That injunction needs to be lifted. And it went in front of U.S. District Court Judge Ann Traum, who I will personally say is one of the smartest people that I know, former law professor over at Boyd prior to being elevated by Biden to the bench. And she did what the law requires here, which is, based on the arguments that were previously before the court, she said that there is no justification for that injunction staying in place. She made a very narrow ruling. She left it open for it to be challenged on other constitutional grounds in the future. But as far as the case as it existed, the rule of law within the case, she said, nope, sorry, this law goes back into effect starting April 30th. And the lawyer for the district attorneys, made a very obvious press release saying this is going to protect the kids, et cetera, et cetera. Abortion is a very difficult thing. You can't be too immature. There are a lot of twists and turns to this law. I can't imagine that it isn't going to be challenged again or that it's not going to come up again. But there was also like a trigger in there that allowed to bypass parental notification if the person under 18 who is unmarried and unemancipated went to a court and proved that they were responsible enough to make a decision about abortion. So that's where we stand right now, is that the law from 1985 has been resurrected. The zombie is back.
So, Jacob, Nevadans are largely in favor of abortion rights. To be fair, Americans are largely in favor of abortion rights. But this law is a little different in that we are talking about minors. So, what's your sense of the temperature, both maybe in the public and the legislature, on this particular policy?
I think this is one of those questions that I think if you're a regular person who doesn't think about abortion much and someone says, should there be a parental notification law? You'd be like,
hang on, is a regular person men, Jacob?
But for someone who doesn't think about abortion a lot, so
Fair.
Men, yes. Yeah, you are right. Should there be parental notification? I think their default answer would be yes, because there's why wouldn't the parents want to know? But the second you start interrogating that, you have to ask the question, why would a minor who needs an abortion not tell their parents?
Yeah.
And that's in cases of domestic abuse, sexual assault, and incest. And so in those cases, do you really think that the minor is going to get better care because they told their parents? And that's why these parental notification laws aren't doing the job that people think they are.
Yeah, it seems like that's the kind of pressure as a teenager or a preteen, we've seen that happen in my home state of Ohio, that would stop a minor from seeking abortion care and make the situation potentially worse.
Building off of what you and Jacob said, parental notification is different from parental consent on one level, so it's not as intense. What's more concerning to me is the tie-in to the criminal penalty, because that would fall upon presumably a physician who's making a medical decision with their patient and potentially the minor child. To also have a criminal prosecution. It is curious to me that this was pursued by district attorneys. That just doesn't sit right as far as why would they particularly care about this particular 40-year-old law? I don't think that the current Nevada legislature, which is dominated by Democrats who have made abortion rights and access a key issue throughout the last two sessions, and in trying to get people to go to the polls. I mean, it was on the ballot last time and passed overwhelmingly. Am I not right about that?
Yeah. No, it was like 60-something%.
Yeah. That they wouldn't try to fix this law. If at a minimum, get rid of the criminal penalties, which is really an antiquated way of looking at this, especially from a state like Nevada, but also just repeal the law. They can do that and save everyone the hassle of additional litigation, because I can't imagine that there wouldn't be another attempt to declare this unconstitutional on different grounds. It's just that wasn't before the judge.
Yeah, is that what you all think? So Nevada has a divided government right now. The Dems have a majority in the legislature. We have a Republican governor. Lombardo did sign abortion protections back into law in 2023 because that's what Nevadans support. That's what Americans support. So what happens next? Is it going to be an easy, we're going to repeal the law, or is it going to get complicated? What's the process here, too?
There is a possibility that Lombardo's going to try to walk the line here. And while he has generally been supportive of abortion access, this might be an easy way for him to placate that part of the base that still probably to this day doesn't trust him, where, he calls this a common sense measure, that it's not too intrusive, especially if they get rid of the criminal penalty. I think that some sort of enforcement for the notification might appeal to Lombardo, and he might veto any efforts that the Dems look, this is a fight that nobody saw was coming. There's going to be political capital that's going to be utilized either way. If it does hit the legislature at this late juncture, then, there could be something less than kumbaya when it comes to repealing this particular law, and it might have to be litigated.
What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, it's all going to come down to the specifics of what actually happens next. To David's point, obviously, they could try and challenge the existing law on different grounds than was at issue in this specific case. But then, you look at sort of like what is the political incentive to do something at the legislature. I think it becomes, what exactly is the legislature trying to do? Is it just getting rid of the criminal penalty? Is it repealing the law? And then how does all that get messaged? Because like I said earlier, I do think this is one of those fringe things that has to be explained to people before they get it. It's not obviously clear why parental notification might be problematic. And so, like David says, is this a win for the governor if he just says, well, this is common sense, difficult to say.
And there's an out because of the judicial bypass. So he could say, look, it's not every situation, and in all your fears about incest or sexual abuse or anything else, all the person needs to do, and the law actually provides for them to get a free lawyer, although it's only for $30 an hour, so that probably needs to be adjusted. But that said, there did seem to be some degree of thought via the lens of 1985 on how to fashion this law, though it does seem somewhat antiquated at this juncture.
Although one has to, with that judicial bypass real quick, I do wonder how much agency, say, a 14-year-old in an abusive situation has to go to a court and petition for a lawyer to prove that they
presumably legal aid or some other pro bono group would be available.
But I think it's I'll put it this way. I think there's a chilling effect that would happen, whereas I just don't think that teenager in that situation would seek that help in the first place, because the mechanisms are not such that they're actually incentivized to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Where do you go to for support? Listen, random recommendation. There's a podcast from the BBC called The Gift, which is actually about at-home DNA testing, but they did an entire episode focused on America about incest. They're not saying we have more incest than other places, but it's tracking stories that basically in this era of at-home DNA testing, we're getting a bigger sense of just how many children are born to minors because of incest. So if you're thinking, well, that doesn't happen very much, we're actually finding out it happens a ton. And so I'd highly recommend this episode to give you a different angle on this entire issue and why it's not such a good idea for maybe a pregnant minor to talk to their parents about it.
Shopping is hard, right? But there's a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And she sends just for me pieces. Plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what I love and send back the rest. It's so easy. Personal styling for everyone. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Holiday! Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Holiday! Holiday, bring it on!
Okay, do you want to talk about Pahrump instead?
Sure.
Yeah, let's
why
talk
not?
about Pahrump. Yeah.
What you got?
Let's talk about Pahrump. Well, Pahrump has been Pahrumping out there. So Nye County deputies have seized 7 tigers from a home in Pahrump. Nye County Sheriff's Office said it assisted code enforcement and animal services in removing 7 tigers from the property that belonged to 71-year-old Carl Mitchell, who owns Big Cat Encounters. Deputies issued a search warrant saying that he owns the tigers for the last 7 years. You need special permits to have tigers on your home, everybody. These are state and federal permits. And Mitchell had these permits for 5 years, and for the last 2 years, he has not. And so that's what resulted in the search and seizure. I've got a couple quotes here from Sheriff McGill saying that the Pahrump community was aware of his tigers. They were not secret tigers. The issue is that Mr. Mitchell was being evicted from the property, and the owner of the property was not being allowed onto the property to inspect. We have known for several years he's had big cats on his property, and for the last 2 years, this has been in violation because he has had no permits for these cats. He added, we've received information over the years that he has been seen walking the tigers loose around the property and off the property in the desert. There have been social media posts from him with people interacting with the cats, which is also in violation. Carl Mitchell was arrested for resisting an officer at the property. Mitchell claims to have rescued 6 of the tigers from Joe Exotic. I'm sure we all watched Tiger King during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's him. And he explained that the tigers serve as his emotional support animals, saying,
Sure.
I am 100% disabled veteran with PTSD. The VA and my doctors have approved the tigers to work as support animals. I have not called the VA to check on that, y'all, but maybe later today. So the tigers are going to an out-of-state sanctuary. That's it for him and his tigers. Here are my questions.
So many questions.
That was a lot, yeah.
On a scale of 0 to 10, how Pahrump is this news? 10 is Pahrump, and 0 is downtown Summerlin.
On the scale of 0 to 10 Michelle Fiore's, how Pahrump is this
Is this
particular?
news?
Yeah.
What do you think, David?
That's a 7.
Just a 7.
Yeah, I was also going to say a 7. You took the words right out of my mouth.
What's a 10 for you?
There's a disabled vet with PTSD, emotional support tigers. I
7
get it.
emotional
He was
support
saving the
tigers.
tigers. Yeah, he walks them around. Everyone knows
Loose.
about it. It wasn't like he was harboring like tigers to extract their serum for some sort of weird experiment, which would
We
be
don't
a
know
10
that yet.
Pahrump. I don't
Yeah.
know that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I'll say I'll bump it to a 7.5 just because,
Okay.
of course, there's a permitting issue, and that's really the problem here.
Right.
Like
Yes.
it's very Bundy coded.
Well, I'll go 7.5 too because he was being evicted.
Yes.
This poor guy.
This poor guy does have a lot going on, but you need to get your permits, you know? That being said, the fact that it was a permitting
Too much
issue,
government.
Exactly. It doesn't feel Pahrump. It feels Nevada, that it's like, oh, well, of course he had tigers, but it wasn't the tigers. It was a permitting issue. Good point, Jacob. So, is it fair for us to dump on Pahrump in this way?
Are
It's
we
a little
dumping
fair.
on Pahrump? I think we're embracing the curious aesthetic of the entire community in a lot of ways.
Poor Pahrump. Here's my personal question for the two of you. What wild animal would you be most likely to get caught harboring at your estates?
Without a permit.
Yeah, like illegally or legally.
Well, without a permit, so it's
it
all
is-
automatically
Oh, I get it.
illegal.
You're right. When you're right, you're right.
Yeah, illegally. Yeah, illegally. What are you going to get caught harboring illegally at your home? David Figler?
A platypus, of course. God's
Nice.
mashup that doesn't seem like it should make any sense, but it does. I create a little wetland in my backyard for
Oh.
it. Me and Pete the platypus would be just chilling, kind of walking around the old John S. Park neighborhood. People would love the platypus. I got a neighbor who has a tortoise. They become friends. It'd be
Are
great.
you saying that you are an animal that's all mixed up and God never intended?
I am God's mistake that somehow seems to persevere. Yes.
All right. Well, your water bill
I am
is
a
gonna
mashup
be...
of a lot of differing concepts, for
You
sure.
can't- your water bill's going to double at least if you're harboring a platypus, David. So I find
At a
that
minimum.
inadvisable.
Well,
Jacob, what
water's
do
so
you think?
cheap in Vegas, man.
Yeah.
We don't pay nearly enough.
Well, for me, it's still illegal to touch a desert tortoise, right? So
You can touch them. You can pick them up if they're
can
wandering
pick
into the
them up?
road. Yeah, you can pick them up. They might pee
that's
on
like
you.
a good Samaritan thing.
We
You
did
can't
a
just
whole
like pick
episode
them up
about
to
it.
take
Yeah.
them home because that's
Yeah,
what
but-
I would do because I want to watch TV with one of them. It feels
That is
fun.
illegal.
I didn't mean to out my neighbor. I believe it is a legal creature, whatever it is.
The desert tortoise. Did you say you wanted to watch TV with it?
Yeah, it seems fun. Like it just seems fun to like be on the couch with the desert tortoise and like he's chomping on a leaf and I've got popcorn and just, we're
love
shooting,
that
we're shooting the shit.
visual.
Like it's great. Maybe it's not illegal. If I want something more illegal, I'll pick something like fluffier, like a chinchilla.
Yeah, Jacob, there's pathways to this dream for you. They're supposed
I
to
could
live in
make
your
it happen.
backyard, to be fair, but you could put a TV on the back porch.
I could
But
put like a projector back there. Like we could do movie nights. It'd be great. I think it'd be fun.
through the tortoise group, you can apply to cohabitate with a tortoise, Jacob. Like this.
So I would need a permit. So I just do this permitless.
It's not a permit. It's you. They give you the tortoise. Like they. will
He's
come
going to
look-
break in and steal one of the tortoises, okay? There's the illegality.
I can find a way to make this
These
illegal.
are tortoises that were like in captivity since it was legal to just pick them up and take them home and watch a movie with them, or their children that they were born in captivity, so they need like a caretaker. But they'll just like it's a free program. You just have to like do some things to your backyard, go through a training, and then you have a tortoise friend for the rest of your life. I'm going to
Okay.
get one and name him Ray Fiennes.
Jacob's going to smoke pot with that tortoise. That's where it's going to get illegal.
Yeah, I have plans for me and the tortoise. We're going to be best friends.
Your turn, Sarah.
Okay, so my immediate thought was a capybara. So it's weird that both you and I went with like wet animals. They're adorable. I picture him in my bathtub, or you know what? I have a kiddie pool for when my friends with kids come over. So like he'll hang out in the kiddie pool. Again, like placidly eat vegetables next to me while I'm watching TV. That actually does sound great, Jacob. They're so cute. They're so gentle. I used to work at a zoo. I did get the opportunity to scratch one. I don't remember what his name was. But yeah, they're just like a giant wet guinea pig. And I do want that in my home. Hey, Jacob, we introduced you a little differently today because you're doing something fun and new. What you got going on?
That's right. So on YouTube, you can search Battleborn Bites with a Y, BYTES. And I have a fun little YouTube show where once a week I dive into like Nevada news, what's happening in Nevada. And I have these fun little historical lessons. It's quite a delight. If you just watch it, you'll be locked in. You're going to be so locked in. That's all I can
That's so
promise you.
fun. Do you have
is
guests
fun.
on, or is it just you?
That's just me. I can have guests. Do you want to be on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both do.
Yeah.
All right. I'll figure it out. I'll talk to the bosses. I'll make it happen. We're going to have
People-
guests now.
Platypus.
Like hearing us, and now they can look at us too. I'll
That's
even
right.
put some makeup on everybody.
I'll
Get
put
ready.
a mask on.
All right. This was surprisingly delightful considering the weight of the
subject
content we're
matter.
discussing. We're discussing today. So thank you so much, Jacob and David, for your informed opinions. I always appreciate them.
Thanks so much for having me.
Always a pleasure.
And that's all for today here in CityCast Las Vegas. Our executive producer, Sonia Jo Swanson. Our producer is Leila Mohammed. And our roving producer this week was Francisco Kilgore. Our newsletter editor is Rob Katchel-Reese. And our hosts are David Figler and Sarah Lohman. Music is by OG Moose, Epidemic Sound, and all the kimonos. We record this show in the traditional homelands of the Nawuvi, the Southern Paiute people. And if you enjoyed our show, send it to a friend. Get the word out. You can rate our show and leave us a review as well. And subscribe to Rob's newsletter, Hey Las Vegas, at our website. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Take care. So you want us to go undercover and steal a cactus from the Sonoran Desert in Arizona?
Let's go. It's a road trip. It's
Well,
a
just
big
how would-
adventure.
How would they know if it was acquired through some kind of heist scenario and not through legal means? I have many questions.
This sounds like an episode. I am in for this buddy comedy road trip for us to steal cacti.
All three of us.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
narrated by Jacob because he has the best voice of the three.
And the tortoise is
Obviously.
shotgun.
Yep,
He's
that's
there.
me on my way to Arizona to steal a cactus.